And that takes us on to the clinical commissioning groups. They're here now, and as you said, it will be too difficult to change policy and have another restructuring, certainly maybe for another 10 years or so. So with regards to the commissioning groups, what criteria do people have to meet, or what qualifies people to be on a commissioning group? And how is probity policed?
So you've asked three very complicated questions, and in an area that is actually probably the vast majority of people, even in healthcare, wouldn't know, because I'm not sure the people in this audience really know what a clinical commissioning group is. So you have to deconstruct this question. You have to actually say something like, the NHS at the moment, quite rightly, places GPs at the centre of planning services for their patients. That's important. GPs see collectively around 350 million people a year. So actually GPs have their fingers on the public's pulse in terms of what's going on. So quite rightly, putting GPs in charge of planning, and another word for planning is commissioning, is right. If you ask me about CCGs, which are the groups that bring GPs together to plan healthcare, we know they're going to have to get bigger. At the moment, CCGs look after or commission for up to about 100,000 population, some bigger, but on the whole, the average is about 100,000. It has to get bigger. It has to get bigger to about 1 million. Some people say even bigger than that. Your second question was about probity, and your second question was about conflicts of interest. And there was a concern, and I voiced concerns, about GPs both planning care, but also being in a position to provide care. And if you don't have some safeguards in, if you don't have methods of dealing with conflicts of interest, you could end up with a GP giving business to themselves, essentially. Now, the answer to that is to make CCGs big enough, because if you make them big enough, you dilute out the conflicts of interest.
Could you just explain how that works?
Well, if you make CCGs big enough, it's very difficult then to say with a nudge and a wink, here, you run this service, because you've got whole levels and layers of governance. So you'll have the GP on the board, but below the board you've got non-executive directors, you've got governance committees, you've got subcommittees, you've got associate directors. So with all of that governance structure, on the whole, if the GP is to deliver the care, they're probably the best person to deliver the care. It's not done, oh, you do it because you're my mate. It's actually, you do it because we've gone through a whole process of governance that actually shows you're the right person to do it anyway.
And how is that selection carried out?
How's the selection of what? Doctors on for CCG?
Yeah,
or
doctors that are not just doctors, there are.
How do people, on the whole, it's people apply. It's not really selection, because most people don't want to take part because they've got the day job to do. So what you're finding actually at the moment is GPs, it's difficult to fill CCGs with clinicians, because clinicians on the whole are seeing patients